Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Tactical Leader. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Burres, and we're going to talk about his amazing product, MyVitalC. Before we begin, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Nightly Productions. If you're a podcaster or YouTuber and you want a multi-purpose content that delivers and you want to discover the power of your voice, head over to nightly.productions to find out how we can help you create that tactical content that delivers. Again, that's nightly.productions. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach. I'm excited to be here to share some kind of business background insights potentially, and some information about kind of an amazing product that I've kind of lucked upon.
Man, I don't think there's much luck involved on this one, and I want to, before we dive into your amazing product and the things you've discovered, I'm going to give the audience just a little bit of background on you because you're definitely fascinating, but different from my normal guest, where you have I wouldn't say a smarter piece of it. I don't want to insult the rest of my guests, but you have a more scientific background attached to yourself, where you've been called a mad scientist, but don't let the lab coat fool you. You've been an entrepreneur since 1991, the founding of the first company to deliver carbon nanomaterials. Then you realized that one of the chemicals you sold, which was based on a Nobel Prize winning chemistry and research by NASA, has been proven to significantly increase the lifespan of mammals. And you struggled with your own skepticism and the moral implications of marketing the material ESS60 as a supplement, but you have an extensive background in a diverse range of areas, including mechanical engineering, comedy, improv, oil and gas explosives, and competitive soccer, just to name a few. And this is where you founded MyVitalC and is focused on evolving and growing the ESS60, maybe ESS60 market. Yeah. We're going to make sure we get that right, because this is the smart people talk we were talking about, and I'm not one of those. So I know that's going to be an amazing conversation. Before we dive into all of this awesome science stuff, what's a fun fact that we might not know about you besides those interesting improv, oil and gas explosive stuff?
That's so explosive improv. It's not fun enough. Well, I think there's
so many jokes to make off that.
there's one thing that I think does often surprise people, and I really love, is I love to dance. I've always loved to dance. My mother was a ballerina, so I grew up. I remember kind of one very old memory. So kind of fast forward to not so old memory of when Michael Jackson passed away. And I was like, oh yeah, another celebrity who's passed, and, he's had a big impact, on people. And it was probably a couple days in, I was like, wait a minute. Like, if I think back to my childhood, I remember dancing in the living room with my mother and my brother. My dad was already asleep, and actually getting the cops called on us for the music being too loud. And what we were dancing to was Michael Jackson. And so then it kind of hit me like, wow, it really is impactful. And it's just a funny story kind of related to dance. My wife and I, when you're out, they're like, hey, how'd you guys meet? And I always use the very short description of she picked me up dancing. And then she's like, no, that doesn't sound good. And then she tells the whole long story, which sounds exactly like she picked me up dancing. So yeah, I love to dance. I do love improv. I love soccer. And yeah, throw in some explosives, downhole explosives, and that just rounds everything off, right?
I think that more than rounds it off. I don't know what it does, but that's fancy footwork on the soccer course. Wow, I obviously don't play soccer. Soccer field. My goodness, yeah. So bad, man. But no, that's fascinating, because I love hearing that type of stuff, especially the wife picking you up on the dance floor. Or dancing. I mean, there's so many ways we can go with that conversation. But, and it leads to the guy behind the science. And I know what we're going to talk about is going to be very scientific. I mean, obviously, this is a different aspect of things that I'm not familiar with, which I'm fascinated to learn more about. It's a product you sent me, a care package. I've tried it out. I mean, it's one of those that helps with my sleep. And for those that listen, know that as a veteran, sleep is not something that's common for me in a lot of capacities. So there are several different applications. But before we even get into all of that, let's go way back. I mean, obviously, you have an amazing background, a diverse range of experience. What got you started down this path into science? Were you always a scientist? Were you the kid in science class building the volcano? Like, where did this passion come from?
Well, I think, really what I realized I was good at, and some of it is just passion. I found it incredibly interesting. I was the kid who was always taking stuff apart in the house and then putting it back together, and often it worked after I put it back together. And then you have the random situations where it didn't work in the beginning, and you take it apart and you put it exactly back together, and all of a sudden it is working. So I kind of had this very significant interest in how things work. I remember I took an algebra exam in middle school, and everybody took the exam. I didn't have particularly great grades, but I remember the teacher standing up and saying, this was bad. I don't know if they still use Scantron. It's probably a different brand of something, right? But we took the Scantron test, and he's like, yeah, I was running all the Scantron tests through, and one of them went through, and it just didn't mark many answers wrong. And I actually ran it through like 3 times. And it turned out it was me. And he was surprised because my grades didn't match getting a lot of answers right on the algebra test. So math was something really at that point, you kind of have this almost quantum shift in like, okay, I'm actually really good at math, and let me push that further. But the real reason I ultimately ended up studying mechanical engineering really goes back to when I was 14. And I'll never forget, my dad was in the military, he was in the Air Force. So we moved every 2 years, and we never lived on base because base housing isn't necessarily the best. And my dad
It's awful.
drove.
Like, let's be honest. In the Army, it's really bad. The Air Force is nice in comparison, but I imagine it's still not great. Yeah.
And he wanted us to have a big yard and had really long commutes. And so we were way out. The only place that we lived on base was actually in Alabama. And it's because he had actually at that point gotten to full colonel, and the full colonel housing was nice. It was a 2-story antebellum house, big yard. So we didn't have to live way out. And I remember in that house, I had a poster on my wall, which was of a Lamborghini Countach. Of course, it was a bright red Lamborghini Countach with the gull-wing doors open. And
I had
so
the
this
green
was,
one. I had the poster of the green one, the lime green one,
yeah,
the Countach. That was like one of the beautiful ones back in the day.
It's an amazing car, and I'm a young kid who has this air. And if I were to say, hey, I found an article what you had to do in order to get a Lamborghini Countach, you would say, well, in the modern era, that's no big deal. You just Google it, and then you have hundreds of answers. Back then, somehow I found an article. I can only imagine it was like a Car and Driver magazine. How do you own a Lamborghini? And it said, really, if you want one Lamborghini, you should become a neurosurgeon. And if you want more than one Lamborghini, you should become an entrepreneur. And I was like, well, more than one sounds really good. So let me, that kind of mapped my path to become an entrepreneur. And then when it came time to go to college, it was really a situation where, how do I know I'm going to be an entrepreneur. There weren't any entrepreneurship programs back then. What is it that I can do that can get me the highest salary the fastest so that I could have money to invest in a business? And I remember the first business thought I had, because it was summarily rejected by my brother as being a horrible idea, was to actually, with pizza delivery, provide movie delivery, right? So you could order a pizza and a movie, and this was obviously, again, pre-internet, so that doesn't seem like a big deal. I thought this was the idea. So at the time going into it, hey, how do I get the fastest, the highest salary, the quickest? And then what ultimately ended up happening is I met my business partner. We started a company while we were still in college. And that's kind of the long and short of how I ended up in this position.
And that's a fascinating thing, because that's like pre-Netflix. Blockbuster might have still been in business at that point. I mean,
not for much longer.
Not for much longer. And it's fascinating because a lot of this turns into one of your goals, and I'm curious where this side, obviously soccer is that it's athletic, but a lot of what you talk about, what you write about, what you talk and focus on is healthy lifestyle as a whole. And in the entrepreneurship space, that's not really common for a lot of us. We
Mm,
forget about food and eating and exercise. And thankfully I have the veteran background where it allows me to wake up and get up at 4 a.m. where that's
mm.
like first thing on my mind. But a lot of folks aren't living this healthy lifestyle in alignment with what you're talking about. And how did that come about where you wanted more of that healthy piece where you're seeing the supplement, you're seeing carbon 60 as a potential piece of different aspects of science? Where did you think, all right, this can be applied in a healthy world and start pushing that way?
Yeah, I think so. So let's kind of back up a little bit and talk about where it's carbon 60, the origin of carbon 60. So basically, in 1985, three scientists discovered the third form of carbon. And I'm holding up a molecule for those of you listening. This molecule that I'm holding up looks exactly like a soccer ball, ironically, since I played soccer. And if you imagine the lines on a soccer ball, the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between carbon atoms. So you have 60 carbon atoms in the shape, a spherical molecule, the shape of a soccer ball. These three scientists discovered it in 1985 and won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short, 11 years from discovery to earning the Nobel Prize. That molecule, actually, my business partner and I started manufacturing it in 1991 and selling it to research institutions around the world. The molecule's amazing. It's harder than a diamond. It actually turned into a diamond. It's got six-fold symmetry. So there's six planes through this soccer ball shaped molecule where it's actually symmetrical, which gives it incredible resilience. You can actually fire it at a plate of steel at 15,000 miles an hour. Most molecules will just shred apart. This one will bounce right back. So it's incredible. It makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, and better photocells. When challenged
And just to
yeah,
pause you there
yeah,
to highlight that, I mean, when we're talking about carbon, you're talking like graphite, diamond, things are like the really, really obscenely hard materials that this C60 was discovered as a third form of something along the lines of graphite and
yeah,
diamond, where
yeah.
it's that strong, very, the physical structure is very different.
Yes, it's the first closed cage molecule in existence. So when they discovered it, that discovery added a new symbol to chemistry, right? That's kind of how you know you're going to win a Nobel Prize, when you like change the language.
Like the periodic table and all that. All of a sudden you
Exactly.
throw
Yeah.
something else on there. Got it.
So the at symbol, and we're familiar with that from our email addresses. It turns out that the interior void, right, that interior of the soccer ball shaped molecule, is big enough for any atom on the periodic chart to fit inside of it. And so lanthanum at C60 means a lanthanum atom physically trapped inside of it. So not covalently bonded to the exterior or ionically bonded, but physically trapped inside of it. And so there's a new symbol in chemistry because of this. And so it's an amazing material. They win this Nobel Prize. They actually thought, for various reasons. So this is probably the worst kind of supplement conversation you'll ever hear, where first we're talking about its great application in tires, inks, batteries, and photocells. And now I'm going to tell you that they thought this was toxic. They actually
Hmm.
thought the molecule was toxic, and they put it in a toxicity study. This is where the story changes. It gets a little better now. Instead of being toxic. So let's talk about that study a little bit. In that study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with what we call ESS 60. That's carbon 60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. And they thought it would be toxic, but instead of being toxic, the rats that they gave the olive oil with ESS 60, really the MyVitalC formula to, lived 90% longer than the control group. So now you have the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in peer-reviewed published research in history. And that was kind of certainly was the pivotal paper that shifted us, my business partner and I, from being carbon, happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists into this arena of supplementation, which was something that we weren't that interested in. So it very much is
That wasn't the goal, right? The
right.
goal wasn't to come out and create a supplement for the athlete or for longevity. You were just discovering different pieces attached to carbon
Well,
60.
yeah, and in reality, we're manufacturing and delivering the material to scientists who are doing the research and coming out with these results. I'm very proud to say that we did provide the material to that original study. It was out of the University of Paris, and we're actually mentioned in that study. So we are kind of the foundation of really ESS 60 being a supplement in any industry and in any capacity. And so that's obviously a good position to be in now that we're here. I mean, to give you an idea of how hesitant and how we didn't like create this, in mid 2012 they published the results. Probably about mid 2013 we started getting phone calls from people going, hey, how much in a dose? And you got to think, we've got our carbon nanomaterial hat on, and we're going, wait a minute, you're asking how much in a dose of that stuff we sell to research institutions around the world to use in inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. We're going to go with approximately 0. And you should consume 0 of this material. We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling back then. Now, let's be clear. The data was clear that it's safe if you process it properly, right? There's research that shows if you improperly process carbon-60, it's actually harmful. But everything where you've processed it properly, we call that ESS 60, that's safe. So you think from 1991, when we started the company, all the way to mid 2013, we did not need the phrase "not for human consumption" on our labeling because it wasn't a thing. From 2013 really until 2017, my business partner Robert and I would meet probably quarterly, and we'd be like, what are we going to do with this? There's some sales happening. We would be getting phone calls where somebody would say, hey, I just wanted to call and share with you that my knee pain is gone. And we'd be like, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because literally says not for human consumption on this. I'm like, yeah. Like, how much should I take? How much more should I take? Can I take more? And so we had this kind of, I call them a wacky collection of biohackers. And I say wacky affectionately because I certainly am one now, that were, really on the cutting edge and taking this product and reporting amazing benefits. Between 2013 and 2017, I found a peer-reviewed published article that said 50% of the supplements on the market don't have in them what they say they have in them. This is the opposite of us selling, raw carbon nanomaterials to scientists around the world. This is selling into an environment and into an industry that is, highly likely to go downhill really fast and have severe quality problems. And it turns out that they did. And we've tested products that are on the market that, claim to have C60 in them. And we found them to be woefully low in concentration. So it's really important to be out there looking for ESS 60 if this is something that you want to try. So all the way until mid 2017, we're getting one to two calls a week. Latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following starts talking about all the benefits he's getting taking it on a daily basis, and then our phone just started ringing 10 times a day. And so my business partner and I, yes, we're carbon nanomaterial scientists. We're also entrepreneurs. This is clearly an opportunity. The data in the literature is clear that this is safe. Not only is it safe, these rats are living 90% longer. And we really asked ourselves two questions. And the first one's a moral question. Am I comfortable selling this? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team takes it. It's not a requirement to work with us. So yeah, I'm comfortable selling it. And then you got the FDA and the FTC, you got to cross T's, dot I's. We're doing that. And it was really the early part of 2018 when we really started selling this product as a supplement into the supplement market.
And it's fascinating to me because this is kind of highlights an entrepreneur journey, right? You didn't mean to do it. You didn't set out looking for it, but you found a gap in the industry or a gap in supplements. And I mean, I've been in the CrossFit world, the military world. I can't tell you what the Army put into me as a quote unquote supplement going to Afghanistan, right? There's no telling. And a fascinating piece of this is, like you're saying, they lie to you about the consumption and different pieces of it where you just can't trust reading the label anymore, it seems like. So a lot of this is you fell into this more or less, not necessarily lucky, but you listen to the audience, and all of a sudden you have this amazing supplement and you start pushing it forward. Where's it at now as far as ESS 60? What's it looking at? as far as I know there are a lot of articles out there about longevity, and it helps with um, the inflammatory piece of it and the anti-inflammatory, and like you're talking about, your knee stops hurting, all these other pieces of it. Where's it at now? Where do you see it going? How do you see this shifting? I mean, you're talking everything from ADHD pieces, CBD alternative. I mean, there's so many different aspects attached to it. Where do you see this going in the future?
Yeah, I think we end up being at a cutting edge of a quantum shift in how we think about longevity, how we think about health. And you know, there's a phrase called health span, like how long can we be healthy? There's some really good books out there. David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, absolutely phenomenal. 25 years of a Harvard researcher's efforts into longevity. It's phenomenal. And, you know, when I tell this original rat study to some people, their response, a number of people, is often like, well, why would I want to live longer? And that's a little strange to me. I don't know where I got the number, probably the same time I was looking at the Lamborghini and I was like, I'm going to live to 125. Just got a number. That's the goal. Right. And I got to be honest, like 125 probably wasn't going to look pretty, right? It was going to, you know, be with a walker or be with a lot of downtime, be with all of these things that I think cause people to ask the question, why would I want to live longer? But if I change the question and we say, Zach, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today and you had the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer? And if I'm honest, there's a number of people who still say no. And I think they need to reevaluate what they do on a daily basis, because with some effort, and sometimes it does take effort, there's joy to find. And yeah, living longer seems a lot more desirable. I often joke, in that original study, where the rats again lived 90% longer, there was no notation that these rats were walking around with little rat walkers and little rat oxygen tanks. You know, they lived healthy rat lives until they passed. And in fact, actually, they were down to the last two rats. One of them passed, and they ultimately euthanized the last one so that they could publish the study 2.5 years after the study should have been published, because it was clearly not toxic and it was a toxicity study. So I think we've got to have a different conversation about longevity and about health span. I can say the first thing, it's not intuitive that something that allowed these rats to live 90% longer wouldn't have benefits outside of just living longer, right? Like, and what's the point of that? If we're just extending our misery longer, then that's why people aren't interested. So we started getting testimonials pretty quickly, and I can share, before I jump into testimonials, there's a couple things. One, the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. And then two, any testimonial that I ever share, I've had a conversation directly with this person, or I've got an email thread directly with this person, or it's me in particular. And these are anecdotal, right? So there's no guarantee that you would get the same benefit. These are just sharing stories, and you can look at the research and make a decision for yourself if this is something that you want to try. Our most consistent testimonial, and honestly, this one could explain everything else amazing that people tell us, is that people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And there's a couple really important pieces to that. I'm not aware of any supplement on the market or any drug or anything that you could consume in the morning to positively impact sleep at night. I'm aware of two things, right? If you wake up early and you exercise, you can sleep better that night. If you wake up early and get exposure to the sun and get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun, you can sleep better that night. But we really are the opposite. There's a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Again, 25 years of sleep research. I call it the scariest book on sleep you'll ever read. It's like the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, except it scares you to sleep, not out of sleep. And he talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry. This is an industry of prescription drugs where you take them right before you go to sleep. And what it really does, and there's kind of chemical details about this, but what it really does is you wake up without the desire for sleep, right? And that probably feels really refreshing. If you're spending your days going through the day and you're like, I just need to sleep, I just need a nap, I need a cup of coffee to keep me from taking a nap, and then you take this and you wake up without the desire for sleep, that's got to feel really good. The problem, as Dr. Matthew Walker points out, is that it's not letting you get your REM and your NREM sleep. Those are the healing and restorative sleeps that you need. The purpose of sleep is actually for those. And I just bring that up because, again, we're in direct contrast to that. Take ours in the morning, not right before the bed, ours in the morning, mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And in reality, better sleep and or potentially more sleep, we know that sleep is good for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And so almost every other testimonial coming out of the product could just be because they're getting better sleep.
And I know we're definitely going to dive into that during the Tactical Friday piece, because I want to chop up more of what to expect. Obviously, my experience with it. So I definitely want to hit that piece on Friday, and I want to kind of know before we let each other go for today and talking about your journey through this. Obviously, there's a bigger mission and vision behind everything you're doing. Overall, what's the legacy you're wanting to leave on the world with the research and the science and everything you're doing?
Really, the legacy that I want to leave is that of a reputable supplement company. And I think it's not something that is very common. I'm working in, it's my responsibility to work on the advertising to get this into more people's hands. And I often get responses to conversations that I'm having that I'm very different than other supplement guys that they've had conversations with, because I say things like, I asked myself a moral question. Am I comfortable selling this? Literally, that surprised somebody the other day, that I would ask myself that in the pursuit of, and again, I think the issue is people, I break it down this way. I think traditionally people get into the supplement industry or become supplement guys one of two ways. So one of them is they wake up and they decide they want to be wealthy, and they decide that they want to do it with supplements, and that's their path. And I've got no problem with people doing that. I have no problem with people getting wealthy. It's just not how I ended up here. The other is, and I like this, it's, more altruistic, where somebody has their own physical challenges or the physical challenges of a loved one, and they do the research and they find the right supplementation and they solve that problem. And now they want to save the world. And hopefully it doesn't surprise you, I'm not against people saving the world. It's just not how I ended up here. I've been manufacturing this molecule all the way back since 1991. They do this crazy, it was a toxicity study. They do this crazy toxicity study. These rats live 90% longer, and now I'm thrust into the supplement industry. So my goal is to get this into as many hands as possible. I was very skeptical. You mentioned it in the introduction. In the beginning, I'm like, is this just what happens if you put a supplement on the market, that people call and say amazing stuff about it? Maybe that's just normal. I no longer think it's normal. I was also very hesitant. Like, if you were to call me, Zach, and say, hey, whatever, my knee pain's gone, or my nails are growing faster, or whatever it is, there was a part of me that had a challenge, right? And it was like, Zach, I believe you because you're telling me this, right? Like, I believe you as a human telling a human, but I'm a scientist and I don't necessarily know what to do with this information. And I've just spent so much time answering phones, so much time reading the testimonials and understanding what this product is doing. And now I'm beyond that. And like, I just need to get it into as many hands as possible so people can continue to share the story. And ultimately, I think I'm going to end up as part of the longevity group of people and scientists who are pushing a healthy and long life forward into kind of the mindset of the general population.
Yeah, I love that. And I know this is a big piece of it. You're getting out here talking about it. You're showing people the value behind it, and you have a ton of videos. You have a ton of content out there. I want to give the audience opportunity. What's the best way to reach out to you? What's the best way to connect with you? See more of this content. Where can they find out more about MyVitalC and see everything that you're putting out there?
Yeah, well, I've made a URL specifically for your audience, so they can go to MyVitalC, C is for carbon, not vitamin C. So myvitalc.com/BATL for be a tactical leader. So myvitalc.com/BATL. When they go there, we've got most of our products. It's just nice and easy if they're interested in trying it. We've got the one that I would recommend is get the product in olive oil. All the research is on the olive oil. It's got the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule. That's what we would recommend. We also have some gel caps if you don't really like the flavor of the olive oil. But any one of the products that are on that page, you can actually get on subscription for a 25% discount. Go ahead and do that. You can cancel at any time. We've got like 500 5-star reviews on Google. The team is not trained to talk you out of canceling. Just go ahead and take care of that. Take advantage of that discount. And we actually do have a face serum, and we have a new 2-part. I don't think it's on that landing page, but they can find it. And it's a unique combination that's getting rave reviews. So you feel free to check that out. We also do have a coupon code for your audience for an additional $15 off of their initial order. And again, that coupon code is BATL. And yeah, go ahead and take advantage of those savings.
Love it, Chris. I appreciate you putting all that together in a quick and easy spot, and obviously the coupon code. Obviously, I love the product, man. It's something that we're going to talk a little bit more Friday about how I've been sleeping on it with the sleep aid that you sent over to me, man. It's phenomenal. I encourage everybody to go check it out. Go check out Chris, all the content, all the science, but definitely test out the product. And Chris, overall, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you for being here, and I look forward to chopping it up on Tactical Friday.
Yeah, Zach, thank you so much for having me.